Good evening. Welcome to the Pearl Report. I'm Diana Lin. Nearly 10,000 people here in Hong Kong are profoundly deaf, but sign language isn't widely used here. And even with advanced hearing devices such as cochlear implants, producer Poon finds it's still difficult for deaf people to communicate and to navigate in their daily lives.
A two-day outing at Llama Island for deaf children and their families. 9-year-old Yongyu was born deaf.
He was 4 months old when I found out he couldn't hear. I saw other babies turning their heads. Why couldn't my son do it? So I took him to the hospital to check. To this day, I find the word deaf offensive. I think hearing is our right. I've tried to give his life sound, to enrich his daily existence. I must think of ways to help him hear.
At 22 months, Yu got a cochlear implant in his left ear.
Most of the people with severe to profoundly hearing impairment, they have problem inside the cochlea. The implant actually is implanted device. There are two parts. One is the external part. We call the receiver and processor. That receives the sound and change it to encoded radio frequencies. That is transmitted through the skin to an implanted device. That is the cochlear implant inside our ear. The receiver of the implanted part picks up the signal and transmits it into an electrical signal and stimulate the hearing nerve inside the cochlea.
Dr. Yu says 60 to 80 profoundly deaf people, or more than 80%, have had a cochlear implant in Hong Kong each year for the last 5 years.
His response is very good. 40 days later, I took him back to the mainland. At the Mong Kok train station, we had just missed the train. He said bye-bye to the train. At that moment, I was so happy. He could finally speak. My expectations are fulfilled.
Yu started going to a speech training center come nursery and kindergarten when he was 2. His mom also tried to help improve his speaking skills.
I told him everything I saw. If he didn't pronounce it accurately, I wouldn't tell him he was wrong. I would repeat what I said.
Yu's mom applied to a mainstream primary school in Kwun Tong.
When he first came, the parents told us about his hearing needs.
Yongyu's school got government funding for a $12,000 FM system. Yongyu says he used it for the first 2 years, but seldom uses it now.
Cochlear implant has a microphone. He receives sound from all around. So we need an FM system. This is a transmitter. It's worn by the teacher. He got a microphone, and then the sound will using this transmitter, and then there will be a receiver of the FM system, and he receives the signal.
啲曳嘅同學咧，通常都會將嗰個 FM 條聲仔咧當係遊戲機咁玩啊，好耍㗎，真係咁嘈。
Sometimes the machine is out of battery and the teacher doesn't know it. Also, the machine often breaks down and has to be repaired. Very troublesome.
Teachers are not experts with the machine. If the child can't hear clearly, you should let the teacher know.
有時清楚，有時唔清楚咯。唔清楚咧，我都會立即同老師講嘅。我問得好少啫，因為我唔想答，唔上堂。
The cochlear implant helps patients to restore their hearing level to the mild hearing impairment level, like 30 to 40 decibel. You can hear a lot. For example, in quiet conversation, a little bit more than a meter apart.
How about Ken? Any Ken?
My voice level is about 60 dB.
And how about this one?
嗰部機咧，只要快講咧就聽唔明啦。
The problem with hearing speech, which is too fast, is because the Yongyu has a little bit of hearing impairment, even with the cochlear implant, because he had only one implant. Hearing with one ear will have a little bit problem in locating the source of sound.
Last month, Yu got his right ear implanted as well, after the government started subsidizing cochlear implants for the second ear. An audiologist has to turn on the earpiece.
就咁樣大聲會唔會太大聲啊？使唔使較細聲少少啊？
呢度
係啊。
要較細聲啲咯。
I hope he can hear in his other ear. Also, it's a machine. If it breaks down one day, how can he hear?
Thought about letting him learn sign language?
After I learn it, few people know it. Who would I sign to? When you work, if you can't speak clearly, or if you only know sign language, I think few places will hire you.
But for 13-year-old Su Ying, sign language is vital to communication. She was born without a cochlear, making an implant impossible.
Since Su Ying has a twin father, so we detect the problems very early in her life. When we are making a lot of loud sounds, such as bumping the door, my son cried very loudly. But Su Ying lied comfortably on the bed.
Su Ying attended a preschool and kindergarten program developed by the Chinese university along with hearing students to teach reading and writing. The school used one-on-one language training and visuals. When it came time for primary school,
because we want her to go to the mainstream school, have a normal school life.
Su Ying attends this Kowloon Bay Primary School, where one class in each of the 6 grades is taught bilingually with sign language. There are 5 to 6 deaf students in each class, and they learn with hearing students. It's the only mainstream primary school of its kind in Hong Kong.
There are different people in society. Through integrated education, learning how to get along, cooperate, and get used to each other are very important. Normally, I will teach with deaf teacher Mr. Song. We'll first prepare for the class. The most important thing is we both know the content of the lesson. Besides teaching orally, I'll use some basic sign language. That's mainly for Mr. Song to see. This way, he'll know where I'm at in my teaching. Mr. Song will then use sign language to teach the same thing to the deaf students. Sometimes I'm the lead teacher, sometimes Mr. Song is the lead teacher.
咁最重要係佢哋小朋友開始嘅時候就已經需要有好嘅學習啦，要訓練佢哋啦。咁又唔好誤會啊，覺得健聽嘅人一定係叻過我嘅。
Simply, we normally say, I have an apple. Sign language is apple have, so it's 2 totally different sets of grammar.
咁香港手語咧，咁有分唔同嘅社區啦，唔同嘅人啦，咁我手語都有唔同嘅。咁個語言發展啊，有唔同嘅。咁係咪要統一個手語咧？我就覺得唔使。咁學校呢度咧？ 咁聾人老師咧，例如數學科啦，咁有啲專用嘅名詞、專用嘅詞彙，例如鋭角，咁即係呢啲專用嘅名詞啦，咁就需要統一，佢就覺得，即係啲學科嘅專用名詞又需要統一，咁即係起碼1至6年班你都會有個同樣嘅打法啦。咁但係平時都有教中文啊、講故事啊。 咁呢啲手語咧就可以用唔同嘅手語都可以嘅，例如火箭呢個火箭，咁呢個又係火箭，係啦，咁呢個火箭咁，後尾學生會唔會話睇唔明啊？唔會，咁 佢見到好形象化喎，有呢個又好形象化，咁一樣都係火箭咯，佢哋都會明。
Do you like school? Why? What do you like?
因為咧，佢就話可以同啲健聽同學仔咧一齊讀書，健聽同學仔一齊學手語啦，同埋我啲而我咧同學咗手語之後咧，可以同我傾偈喎。假如咧有啲同學唔識手語嘅話咧，咁我哋睇下，我會睇口型咯，又或者咧，我哋用紙筆傾偈啦，係啦，筆談啦，我哋用。聽唔到唔係代表冇用，我都係可以。我自己都有啲好叻嘅地方。我想佢做中大做老師啦，跳舞老師啦，游泳老師啦，同埋畫畫老師添，仲有好多好多。我聽唔到音樂㗎，我跟住一啲嘅同學仔咯，同埋我會記住啲拍子啊步伐咯。
Su Ying will go on to a bilingual secondary school sponsored by Lee Hai-san. The Jockey Club, which has been funding the deaf program at her current school since 2006, will stop this July. In Kit Lan says the school needs to hire at least 6 teachers and counselors for deaf students and parents.
We are hoping the government can recognize this kind of bilingual education to be a policy.
The Education Bureau says schools can apply for special needs funding, but
internationally, there is insufficient empirical evidence to support the notion that using sign language or the bilingual teaching model is the best way to teach students with hearing impairment.
Sign language helped the deaf students a lot in learning. From my observation, I found that the hearing students are willing to learn sign language and also willing to take care of them.
如果有陣時冇老師喺度幫佢翻譯，咪會幫佢手咯。
All the subjects involve a lot of knowledge. With the help of the sign language, still she got problems.
成完咗啦。We talk first in speech. If she don't understand, I will use a little bit sign language to communicate. But if she still don't know, I will write down in the paper. Now we now concentrate on the secondary school first. We hoped the government can support sign language translator for her when she go to the university.
coming up.
I really hope the other deaf person can come and join us and learn how to perform in the theatre as well.
希望我可以有自己嘅品牌。
The struggles and dreams of the profoundly deaf. More on that after the break.